Hey everyone, I'm Lisa Jordan, and welcome to MenoPositive,
I got a good feeling.
where we take a refreshingly positive approach to navigating menopause. If you're looking for practical tips, expert advice, and honest conversations, think of this as your personal pick and mix for how to optimize your body. Although we can't prevent menopause, we can redefine it. And that journey starts now. I was scrolling Instagram the other day and came across this old clip of tennis player Rafael Nadal. He was being interviewed after a match, and the journalist asked him, "How do you stay so calm?" And his answer was, I was not calm. I was nervous. But then he said something really interesting, and I'm paraphrasing. He said, "It's stupid to let any negative body language get in my way. It doesn't help me. It only works against me. It's one of the things that only depends on me and not my opponent." He went on to say that when you play a Grand Slam final, you're always going to be nervous. You're going to miss points, returns. That's part of the game. "I'm ready to accept those moments," he said, "but I want my body to help me, not get in my way." It's kind of how I feel about menopause. Newspaper articles, interviews telling us how menopause is an opponent we need to defeat. You may lose sleep. You might gain weight. You, you might snap for no reason. But what if you could train your body to work with you, not against you? That's where breathwork can help. Breathwork facilitators are like the new personal trainer for musicians and actors, athletes. Even the executive suite are getting in on it. They can be part of your entourage too, with techniques that regulate your nervous system, reduce stress, improve sleep, enhance focus, and help you reconnect with yourself and everyone around you. And it's available anytime, anywhere. So, like Rafa, think of breathwork as your secret weapon. And today, we have breathwork specialist, high performance coach, and nervous system whisperer, Rob Ray, with us to talk about the impact of breathwork on perimenopause and menopause symptoms. Now, after a stint in finance and a detour into modeling, Rob began a journey that led him from yoga studios to elite sports training facilities and ultimately to the science of breath. He blends ancient wisdom with modern science to create powerful but really practical tools for everyday life. And he's on a mission to help people harness the transformative power of breath for better health, resilience, and emotional well-being. At the heart of his method, which has been featured in Vogue, it's been in Tatler, The Times, it's a simple idea: breathe better, live better. Stay with us right up until the end of this episode because Rob is going to guide us through a practice that you can start using today. Rob Ray, I would like to welcome your lovely Irish dulcet tones to MenoPositive.
Thank you so much. That was so beautifully put. I think I could go home now.
Yeah. My job is done.
Yeah, everything I would have wanted to say so succinctly. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. Is it true that 80% of us are breathing wrong?
I actually think the number's higher. Yeah, well, breathing wrong. I mean, it immediately. I think it might put people's back up a wee bit. So I never kind of go in with a client and talk about you're doing it right or wrong. But there is a way that you can increase your efficiency of breathing and the functionality of breathing. Breath work in itself and the act of breathing. Which, I suppose they're two separate things. Um, the breath work element is to increase your functional breathing, being able to think about your posture, even and how that can actually affect the movement of your diaphragm. The diaphragm can move 4 to 6 inches, can you believe, up and down. And if you're slouching over, which modern society dictates really that if we're over a computer or whenever we're eating, quite often you just need to look around an office or a restaurant and see The posture doesn't even help. How we breathe, people breathing in through their mouth, people not breathing in through their nose. All these things have an impact. And this is just the biology and the anatomy that I'm talking about. All these things have such an impact on the efficiency of your breath or the functionality, which I'm sure we'll get into.
But how did we get there? Is it just, again, modern living? Is it technology? Because we start as babies. I know you talk about that and
Yeah.
how we breathe. And then, how did we get to this place?
Yeah, I think you know, we come into this where I've got a 9-month-old son and I watch him breathe. He kind of breathes with his whole body whilst his heart rate's high and therefore he breathes faster than you or I might. His whole body is breathing. You can see it's just a very natural way of breathing. And I always talk about breath or the act of breathing as being biological, biopsychosocial, let's say. So the impacts are our whole story that has come before us, all the mini traumas and kind of small t and capital T traumas that we experience through our lives have an impact on our physiology and our nervous system, and that the nervous system therefore creates adaptations along the way, and these adaptations are there to protect you initially. They're there to um, create safety actually and survive. Let's say that the nervous system is interested in survival. It's not necessarily interested in us at 70 or 80 years old not having Alzheimer's or dementia and various different diseases. It's worried about how do I get Rob, Lisa through the day today? What is the best and if what is the best course of action essentially I need to take? And then that adaptation takes place in the nervous system and the physiology, and then that stays if we don't correct it or if it doesn't naturally close the loop.
Because I hear there's a lot of breathing into our chest, right? Which is that the fight or flight when we're breathing up here?
Yeah, it's very likely to lead to this idea of fight or flight, which I suppose is termed as or within the autonomic nervous system. We have two branches that I'll talk about here, which are sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight. And as you've rightly said, whenever we're breathing quite often through our mouth or up into our chest, we are much more likely to be in sympathetic tone. This is like our fight or flight, our ready for action. And it's quite good to be in sympathetic tone in circumstances. It's not always, the kind of the devil that it's been made out to be. But also where we want to be able to work with it is to come back to baseline. We don't necessarily want to get stuck in sympathetic tone whenever we are sitting having a chat and or you're wanting to actually go to sleep. If you think about fight or flight response, the hormones that are getting released are all about being absolutely ready in the moment. They're not thinking about repairing the cells, tissues, the organs for next Tuesday and next Thursday and into the future because the body is in a state of fight or flight, or freeze actually, like what how do I best get through this moment again?
Yeah.
And so if you think about that from a repair and regeneration point of view, we're never kind of going into standby and just letting everything settle.
Oh, that's fascinating. I like this idea of getting to baseline. And you talk about breath like this innate power within us. There's breathing and there's breath work.
Yeah.
What's the difference and why is the distinction important?
Well, I suppose, of course, everyone will know if you're listening to this, you're breathing, that, and when we do it, and I haven't had to teach my 9-month-old son to breathe. He is breathing, and this is really good because obviously it keeps us alive. And whenever we're chatting, whenever we're sleeping, we are continue the act
It
of
just
breathing.
happens. Yeah.
Absolutely. Breath work essentially is seen as the control or the manipulation of the breath in order to create a response or to cultivate awareness or to improve our emotional well-being. So it's an active practice. Breath work would be pranayam, which is how I initially got into breath work, which
And a
is
lot of people would know that from yoga, probably.
yeah,
They'd know that term, right?
totally,
Yeah.
yeah. Prana means people might have heard prana. That's the same kind of considered as chi, or when Tai Chi or energy, or breath, or life force. Sanskrit has many different interpretations of the word prana, and yama is control. So pranayam is the control of the breath or the control of the life force. And so it's this idea of us being and whenever I say control of breath, this is starting to change the frequency of your breathing, change the intensity of your breathing, change the duration of the pauses in between your breath. And you start to see how all of these uh, tiny little tweaks can actually have a huge impact on physiology.
And wait, let's actually go there because you talk about mind body connection. You talk about how breath can really connect the conscious and the unconscious. And I love how you talk about the physiology to the psychology.
Yeah.
Explain that to everybody listening.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, it's undeniable that mind and body are linked. It's almost a spectrum rather than a connection. It's one end is the other. And the in terms of how this kind of unconscious and conscious connection happens, if you again, we're going back to there are two respiratory centers, let's say, responsible for breathing in the brain. One is it doesn't really matter about the names, but one's pre-Buttsinger complex, one's parafacial nucleus. And the pre-Buttsinger is this kind of in follows out. The breath just continues as you're listening to me, as maybe you're listening, to this podcast. The breath is just going in and out, and you're not really thinking of it too much. At any given stage, I can ask you to inhale and hold. And all of a sudden, you're actually activating what's known as the parafacial nucleus. So it's a different set of neurons in the brain that you're activating. This is the idea of being able, having an unconscious breathing, which is the in followed out, versus the conscious. You can't, for instance, I can't ask you to just stop digesting your food from lunch or from breakfast, whilst we have this chat, but I can ask you to hold your breath for a second. So this is the beautiful link that it's as far as we know the only brain and bodily function that we do have control over in that way, as well as like an unconscious and conscious bridge.
And then where does this unlock happen as part of that process where the unconscious can rise up or you can draw power from
Yeah,
it
yeah.
as well?
So this is whenever it gets kind of into the neuroscience with the breath. The brainstem itself has a huge impact on the respiration rate. Respiration rate is how many breaths one might take in 1 minute. We have these chemoreceptors at the back of the brainstem, which essentially are like thermostats in your house, and they're just tuning into the level of carbon dioxide in your blood. That's kind of the trigger to breathe is carbon dioxide. It's not oxygen. So it's saying, okay, here is too much carbon dioxide is in our blood, so we need to breathe faster, or there's too little, so we need to breathe slower. Okay, so there's the chemoreceptors, at the brainstem are the thing that actually trigger the phrenic nerve down into to pump the heart for us to breathe.
I love this idea that they're a little thermostat
Yeah, yeah,
and they're just regulating, like trying to regulate the temperature or the carbon dioxide, oxygen
exactly.
in your body.
Yes, yeah,
Fascinating.
100%. And so it's actually a really important point within why we even do breath work, because the sensitivity of these chemoreceptors can change, and not always for the better, let's say, because it might just get used to not having a lot of carbon dioxide in the body. And if it doesn't have a lot of carbon dioxide in the body, then it becomes extremely sensitive to any sort of rise in carbon dioxide.
Oh.
And this can be problematic because actually we do want to have a certain level of carbon dioxide in our blood so that it helps the oxygen release into the cells, tissues, organs.
So what does that look like then?
So in terms of
The human behavior that would come out of that.
yeah, so essentially the human behavior that comes out of an inefficient release of oxygen into the cells, tissues, organs, brain fog, irritability, stress, bad sleep, lack of focus, because and kind of lack of energy, because you're not nourishing your cells, your tissues, your organs, your muscles with oxygen. That's what we're trying to do, and it's the ratio between carbon dioxide and oxygen that is key here. So it's like it's an extremely important point within physiology whenever we're talking about breath is how your body reacts to the level of carbon dioxide in it.
And I love this because with this show, we like to explain physiologically what's happening in your body so you understand, like,
Yeah.
I'm not losing it, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
this is what's happening, and then here's what you can do about it.
yeah,
And I think, like, lung capacity is also another thing that's getting talked about as part of longevity, and I think we take it for granted, like you said, because we breathe and it just comes naturally. You don't have to think about it too much. And I think lung capacity peaks in your 20s and then, like most things, and then
yeah,
and then declines. But I also understand when you're going through perimenopause and menopause that the change in hormones can impact our breathing. Like women start to feel more breathless. Um, so this could be a general question. How does breathing change as we age, and how is our breathing affected by hormone shifts?
yeah. Well, I'll answer the first one first. As we age, as you quite rightly said, our lung capacity and our lung elasticity actually kind of becomes more rigid if we don't do certain things to open it up as we get older. So if you can imagine then what happens is lung capacity goes down and our lungs become more rigid, which means we get less movement in the breath. We start to breathe into maybe one space, which is very often from the heart up to the upper chest, and that increases respiratory rate. That expels more carbon dioxide. That increases sensitivity to the chemoreceptors. That reduces the release of oxygen into the cells, tissues, organs. That increases stress. That increases cortisol. That reduces sleep. And it's like this is the
Yeah,
cascade of, like, it's like a waterfall.
and I mean, to me, there's never been a greater argument. Like, I guess we think of our everybody talks muscle mass, but we can think of the lung like this muscle and that it needs
Yeah.
to be exercised as we age. And I mean, there's like I was saying, there's never been a better argument for me for adding breath work or being more conscious of how you're breathing for your health in
Yeah.
general.
Absolutely. The ability, even quite aside from breath work, just the yogis had it right, 15,000 years ago, whenever they were doing certain movements with their torso and their chest and their back, because they're starting to release the muscles around the intercostals and the ribs, where of course they protect the lungs. But the more that we have flexibility and the ability to move within there, the more the diaphragm can move up and down, and the more that, of course, the lungs then can expand as much as they need to expand.
I can I tell you, just as we're talking, I am breathing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really trying to fill up my lungs going
Yeah,
sideways because the big thing I'm
yes,
learning about is breathing sideways, not up. And anyway,
absolutely.
I'm so consciously breathing right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah,
Having also trying to calm down
yeah,
as
yeah,
I'm, doing the interview. Now, how do hormone shifts
yeah. So
affect breathing or
huge, really hugely. Even like putting aside, perimenopause and menopause, through the cycle, through the menstrual cycle, you'll have different hormones being released. The kind of probably the key one in terms, if you think about the four stages of the cycle as the kind of menstrual, ovulation, follicular, luteal phase, essentially throughout the cycle of 28 days, you will in you will experience an increase in respiration rate, peaking whenever there's progesterone release in the luteal phase for about 15 days. And again, this has the impact that I talked about with respiration rate, and in terms of, as it starts to get faster, then it essentially simulates the symptoms of anxiety. So it's, as we start to breathe faster, you'll probably have experienced it if you've got a very big meeting or podcast or talk at work or important conversation. You start to get quite um, anxious, and then you start to speak very fast, and you're speaking from up here, and your mouth becomes dry, and it starts to make the other person nervous, makes you even more nervous, and it's a violent or a vicious circle. So the progesterone is, I suppose, the stimulant to the respiratory system to breathe even faster. And estrogen starts to decrease throughout the cycle. Estrogen's like your anti-inflammatory. Um, indicator, so it helps the body a lot. And both estrogen and progesterone help with GABA, which is normally for calming the
And
nervous
your
system.
body produces
The
GABA.
GABA,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Just for everybody listening. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and it's like a neurotransmitter. Like that.
And it's a positive
It's a
like GABA is
very,
a,
very
you
positive.
want GABA.
We want GABA.
We want GABA.
We want GABA. But
Yeah.
if you imagine that whenever there's a big shift over a period of time, then the GABA gets kind of dysregulated rather than having a steady release of GABA. So this kind of hormonal shift can make you feel dysregulated, destabilized, unbalanced.
And it's interesting because I think the research is and the science is now catching up as well because um like the data related to breath work and the menopause is really fascinating. I think. I mean, I was reading that 30 minutes of breath work a day can reduce menopause symptoms by 52%.
Yeah,
And like you were saying, this doesn't just have to do with, hot flashes, but PMS symptoms if you're still having your cycle, headaches. I mean, and you've talked about mood and sleep and even sexual function, right?
yeah,
And when they say that, do they mean libido? Like, or
yeah,
yeah, like
yeah.
just performance or
Okay.
just the urge, the
Yes, yeah,
interest in
the
it?
desire, exactly. You'll know that to even be in the mood, you've got to be at least in a relaxed state,
That's a good
not
point. Yes.
thinking, not angry at absolutely everything around.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So Rob, how can breath work be a secret weapon for women navigating hormone shifts?
Well, I suppose thinking about even perimenopause, there's this kind of huge hormonal fluctuation that's happening, and I think it's important, therefore, to like have that compassion that there is a hormonal shift happening within the body that is literally affecting the way that you're breathing and affecting the release of calming, let's say, stabilizing hormones within the body. And if that process is getting dysregulated, then of course it's going to have the physiology. This is the physiology psychology link. The psychology is going to get affected. We're going to be stressed. We're going to snap. We're going to say things that sometimes we wish we hadn't because we're kind of in that sympathetic drive, that fight or flight. So using the education and the tools that we have in breathwork, we can start to say, okay, if this shift is affecting all of these hormone releases, surely I can use the breath, speak to my nervous system to say, I'm going to regulate you. I'm going to make sure that there's an efficient release of oxygen. I'm going to make sure that there is a stable release of GABA. And breath, pilot studies have shown that the breathwork pranayam has reduced stress, sleep issues, and anxiety within menopausal women by up to 80%.
And does it make a difference the time of day you do it? Like, should it be a morning practice? Is there a difference between breathing in the morning, breathing in the afternoon,
Yeah.
breathing in the evening?
Well, funny, I was out for dinner with a client last night, and uh, he said to me this idea of purposeful pauses. I love this. I said, I'm going to steal this. I've got a podcast tomorrow because I talk about breathing breaks with my clients, but I also like this idea of purposeful pauses. And these are the moments whenever, you're maybe at the coffee machine or you're waiting in a queue and um, immediately you normally go for your phone. Oh, I'll just double check my email or whatever it is. And instead of doing that, can you start to tune in to just 4 breaths or 5 breaths? If the average adult takes 14 breaths per minute, and I would suggest amongst certainly perimenopausal and menopausal women, it would be higher because the respiratory rate goes higher. Then there's 21,600 breaths and above that you're taking every single day. And you might not be conscious of one of those, not one breath. So it's like an amazing protocol or little habit just to drop into your day, a purposeful pause. As okay, I've got 3 minutes while I'm waiting in a queue instead of either starting to get annoyed, overthinking about something, or going onto the phone, or eating a snack. Even just saying, okay, for 15 breaths here. I'm going to try to count my breaths. Just watch my breath, observe my breath for the next 15 breaths until I get to the front of the queue. And this is a way that some of my clients have found it really beneficial, to integrate these breathing breaks into their everyday, because then they don't need to worry so much about, but Rob, first thing I get up, I've got my three kids who jump on me, and then I've got, and then my emails are going, and I work, globally. And so I've got different things all happening all over the place. Whilst I still think that it's really important to let yourself wake up and not jump straight into, the life that is waiting for us every day, to integrate 3 to 5 minutes in a morning is invaluable. Just even to allow your brain waves to switch from, sleep to awake and alert, um, to allow yourself to feel genuinely, and to give yourself the space. Like, you know, gosh, my hormones are like X today, and I do feel really angry or agitated or anxious. That's okay. It's like to almost give space to that, and then say, okay, well, I'm gonna just experience this, and then do a breathing protocol for 5 minutes. So I personally love doing it in the morning. Um, I mean, if you can start to integrate something in the evening, fabulous. As you're lying in bed.
I've started doing it. I started a meditation practice and I'll do breathing while I'm meditating. But I was going to ask you, sorry, and it does set me up for the day. And I love what you were talking about, these purposeful pauses, because to me, I would love people to implement that, um, instead of, like you said, picking up their phone or having a snack, because it can actually just helps regulate you in general. You don't have to wait until you're having a hot flash or until you're feeling really angry. I mean, you can use the breathwork techniques as tools to when you are in those moments and you need something. But if you could practice that, like you said, when you're in line at
Yeah,
Starbucks, or before you even get out of bed, you take whatever 3 minutes of breathing. It could help regulate you and set you up for the day.
absolutely. I mean, if you imagine, that could be 20 breaths 3 times a day. That could be 6, 8, 9 minutes per day. What's that? Like, 60 minutes. That's like almost an hour a week, 4 hours a month, 40, 50 hours a year, that you're using consciously breathing.
And I also think when I speak to my daughter about her time on the iPad, like, if I want her to do her, like, music practice, and I just say, "Just go practice for, like, 10 minutes." And, like, how much time have you actually spent on the iPad today versus
Yeah.
10 minutes of this? I think we can apply that to ourselves
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And are there different breathing techniques for different symptoms of menopause? Like, are there breathing techniques that help with body temperature if somebody's having a hot flash? Is there, um, I don't know, I was reading
Yeah.
paced breathing, I think, when you're feeling anxiety. Are there different techniques that you would use in some of these different
Yeah.
situations?
Yeah, for sure. Breathlessness, hot flushes, I would always kind of move towards much slower breathing, as in, like, almost feeling like if you're just become aware of, if you are breathing in for two and out for two, or in for one and out for one, sorry, it's getting very fast. Then to elongate both the inhale and the exhale, start to really slow it down. People talk about diaphragmatic breathing, and that'd be a big one for in those moments, especially just starting to feel slower with the breath, as in, like, you're taking it almost in through a straw. It's almost imperceptible, the inhale and the exhale, because everything starts to slow down and calm down. And I this the slower breathing really, really helps increase carbon dioxide in your blood,
Which we want.
which we want. Yeah, exactly. We want that because that helps the release of oxygen. And so this helps blood circulation. That's a huge one. If you think about carbon dioxide, as I've said that it releases oxygen, but it actually dilates your veins, arteries, capillaries. So if we have more carbon dioxide in the blood and in the body, the veins are wider, the blood travels more evenly, let's say, or this kind of natural pharmacy that we have in our blood gets all the way over the body. And this is really, really good for hot flushes, really, really good for breathlessness. In terms of anxiety and kind of irritability and these things, box breath is really good. I don't know if you've
Can you
if you
explain it?
yeah, I mean it's so simple but it's
Isn't this the one that Navy SEALs use?
this is the one that Navy SEALs
Yes.
use. They use this in
Yes.
combat, and I've got some sports people as clients, and we would do this quite often before they go into the ring or the course or the stage. And this is just, if you can imagine a square, and you breathe in for the same time as you hold, same time as you hold, exhale, same time as you hold. So it's, let's say for talk's sake, it's 4 second box. It's inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. And this box is this is the idea of actually bringing retention into your breathwork protocol. And retention can be really, really good for, number one, slowing the breath down again, but again, increasing your tolerance to carbon dioxide, which we talked about. And I talked about those two respiratory centers in the brain that start to activate different neurons in your brain, which helps with the elasticity of the brain, helps with motor function in the diaphragm. So the box breath is a really, really good bang for your buck.
And when you say retention, you mean that's the holding of
That's
the breath, right?
exactly, yeah,
That's the
breath
hold.
retention, yeah.
And the other thing I love though that because we are called MenoPositive, I mean, this isn't just about managing stress, right? I love that breathwork can be used to enhance performance.
Yeah,
You know, you talked about athletes. I know you're working with a lot of the C-suite.
yeah,
It can help with energy because that's another thing. You know, some women, it's like at 3 o'clock, they've just run out of energy or they got to hit a big meeting.
yeah.
What does that breath look like?
That's the normally my type A personality clients absolutely love this breath because it's faster and it feels like you're doing something,
Yes.
and there's an immediate impact. I always say to my clients, it's a little bit like sprinkling caffeine on the nervous system. It's more of a, in pranayama, it's called Kapalabhati. Whenever you feel like there's a wee fly in front of your nose that you're trying to get rid of, you're like, and the exhale is the focus. And so it's like boom, 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 boom. And you can do this for 50, 60, 70 reps. And it can feel like the yogis would call it breath of fire. That's Kapalabhati. Cyclic hyperventilation was the other one I kind of started with. And that was you can come in through the nose and out through the mouth. And it can sometimes even be in for 3 seconds and out for 3, like it's quite intense actually, and you'll feel tingles in the fingers. You'll feel maybe a little bit lightheaded. We're doing that to change our state, because actually, whenever you're lethargic and feeling tired and feeling like, "Oh, I'm not really up for it," it's the the temporary breath of doing this. This isn't good to do. Like, this isn't efficient breathing for traveling around your city, your London, or your New York, or wherever. But it is really good on a kind of short, sharp burst of 4 or 5 minutes to expose yourself to stress or adrenaline in the body, which creates a response from your system to kind of be more clear and to be more ready. So actually, what I'm doing there is very likely taking you out of parasympathetic, out of that kind of, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and that's very likely you're down in parasympathetic, to up towards sympathetic tone, and you're like more alert, ready for a meet, ready for. I do it sometimes before like a social situation where I've woken up from a nap and I'm like, okay, I don't want an espresso, I don't want a tequila, and instead I'll do cyclic hyperventilation, or I'll a little bit of breath and movement.
I was just gonna say that, like, sometimes you gotta at the end of the day, you're like, "Oh god, I gotta go for this work dinner,"
Yeah.
or whatever, "I've got this party I've gotta take," or the sports day, or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it is you have
yeah.
to get through.
Yeah.
I love that idea, and so we have those 2 elements, like you said, where you're kind of jacking yourself up,
Yeah.
putting energy back into the body.
Yeah.
I think you said, like, sprinkling caffeine.
Yes,
I
yes,
love that
yeah.
idea, and I know on the things we were talking about earlier, when you're slowing the breath down, I've heard you talk about this before, that what it allows you to do is not react. I think you talked about it like, instead of, you might be in a situation and you just see door number 1.
Yeah, yeah,
When you slow your breath down, all of a sudden you can see there's door number 2, there's door
exactly.
number
3,
3,
4, and
there's door
5.
number
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I find that space that you create in your mind has been one of the biggest feedbacks that I've had from my clientele. Actually, it's this idea that yeah, they don't. I use that analogy of being out on the top of a ski slope, and the same thing. You go down piece number one all the time, and then you've done the breath, or you've practiced this, and you've cultivated awareness, and you've cultivated interoception, and then you're sitting at the top of the mountain, and the stimulus happens, the provocation, or the email from the client comes, and normally you would have gone down that piece number one, but actually you see that there's you know 5, 6 other lines or pieces to go down, and I think I think that this space that one can create in their mind is so profound, and it's not transformation. I do this transformational breath work as alongside this kind of foundational mindfulness breath work, and transformation for me isn't the huge profound cataclysmic moment. It's the small perceptual shifts in your default state. And that's what's really, really interesting, because over time that starts to add up to huge, huge change in the way that you interact with yourself. And as soon as you interact with yourself in a more clear, calm way, you completely, change the way that everyone around you interacts with you.
And I also love, you know, you can't I think most of us are going, just calm down, like, stop stressing, stop," like, I mean, we even say it to our children.
Yeah, yeah,
We're like, "What are you stressing about? Stop stressing," and we're using all these words, but breath work is what do they say? It's like the most efficient release of oxygen into the brain, into the cells, into the tissue. So, we can't talk our way out of stress, but
yeah,
our body can respond to the stress, and
yeah.
that's what breath work can help with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like the nervous system's language, let's say, is sound, breath, movement. This is really
What say that again?
the nervous system's language. The language that the nervous system speaks is sound. Sound, I should say. So
I
am
can say it, I'm
yeah,
Canadian.
yeah.
Sound.
Sound, yeah, yeah. Sound, breath and movement.
Sound, breath, and movement are
Yeah,
the language of the nervous
yeah,
system.
absolutely. And so of course we can try to say to ourselves, calm down, you don't need to be stressed. And this can help to a degree. Yeah, that's better, I suppose, than saying, I'm so stressed. Like the words still are things and thoughts are things, right? But the most efficient way that we can communicate with our nervous system is by using the breath, using sound. Sometimes it's humming, or doing a little bit of movement. These are the most efficient ways, because if you think about it, like, take yourself way back to our ancestors, and whenever you were running away from that tiger, you weren't kind of breathing slowly. You weren't humming. Oh yes, this tiger's going to eat me soon. You were, getting up the tree and running, and that was, of course, that's the way we've evolved. Now, there's thankfully for 99% of people, there are no more tigers chasing us, but there is the emails coming in. There is the noise pollution. There is the stuff we're putting on our skin. There is the stuff we're eating. There is the social media. All these things are stressors that put us into that sympathetic state. So the best way that we can, like, take back control, let's say, of the nervous system is in these ways.
I mean, it's a gift, really. It's a gift. It's free. You can do
Yeah,
it in your car. You can do it in the queue.
exactly. And it's the prefrontal cortex in your brain is seen as the CEO, the decision maker of your brain, right? And this is your logical part. And of course, sometimes whenever you're stressed, it's about real life problems. And so logic tells you I should be stressed. So breath, movement, sound are the way that we can almost bypass that prefrontal cortex
Oh, I
and just
love that.
move into a deeper state.
Yeah.
And I practice with my 9-month-old. and I hum into his chest. I hum like to try to activate his vagus nerve whenever I see that he's kind of getting a little bit wound up about something, and you can feel him calming down, and he does, and then of course he just falls asleep.
Actually, you touched on vagus nerve because it's everywhere, right? Like,
Mhm.
and can you explain what it is and why
Yeah.
it's important?
Yeah, yeah. The vagus nerve is actually, a set of nerves. Let's say that vagus kind of comes from the Latin meandering.
It doesn't come from like
Yeah,
Las Vegas because
yeah,
I'm like, this is a party nerve, is
yeah,
it
yeah. I
not?
know. Like it should. Yeah, exactly. It should
Should
help
be a
us to
party
party.
nerve.
It's become the party nerve, hasn't it? But yeah, one of the 12 cranial nerves, essentially, that travels down from the brain into most of our vital organs in our whole body. So this is why it's kind of it's meandering. It's the vagus nerve. It meanders through the whole body, and makes up about 75% of your parasympathetic nervous system. So this parasympathetic branch,
The good branch.
the good branch.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Well,
like
the one, yeah.
the one that I feel, or it's kind of proven also that we don't spend enough time in because we're kind of in that chronic sympathetic state. But we want both. That
Agreed. Yes, you want
yeah,
balance
yeah,
and know
exactly.
when but you want to be in control of when to access.
Yes, yes.
Mhm, mhm.
A lot of this practice, from my point of view, is um, life is going to be stressful at times. And things do happen in life that make us even more stressed. And to play within this window of tolerance allows us to move up to sympathetic or sometimes above into overwhelm. Because that's also, it's not unheard of that even if you practice and you meditate and you do all the right things, you can still get overwhelmed with stuff. But the idea is that you don't get stuck in overwhelm. You come back down to baseline, let's say. And equally parasympathetics, let's say the other end of the scale of the window of tolerance. Below that's maybe disassociation and depression and just kind of nothing matters. Um, we can also get there whenever really bad things can happen as well. But it's also the kind of capacity and the agency to know that we don't have to be stuck there either, and we can come back. And I really like this analogy for creating resilience and flow within the nervous system.
They should teach this at schools.
Yeah, and that's something I would love to do. Love to
Anybody
do.
listening,
Yeah,
Rob's looking
yeah,
for
yeah,
another
Rob.
side hustle,
Yeah, yeah,
bringing breath work into schools.
yeah.
So just wrapping up on the vagus nerve though. So you said, so
Yes.
it comes down, it touches almost all of our organs.
Yeah, most of the vital organs, and hospitals and now have artificial vagus nerve stimulators.
I've seen these
Yeah, so that
advertised.
you will put it on the skin in order to stimulate the nervous system, which is why I sometimes hum into the wee man's chest so that he
I
can
just think humming, you don't have to buy this 150
yeah,
pound gadget. You
yeah,
could
yeah,
just hum.
exactly.
I think that's why chanting, like
This
is it
is
chanting?
chanting, humming,
Yeah.
mantras. They have actually so much science behind them as to why they are so relaxing. They can put you into a different brain state. They stimulate the vagus nerve, which again activates that parasympathetic. So
So
I know
everybody just start humming. I mean,
everyone,
just,
yeah, I mean, it's
hum your
so
way
good.
into the school gates
Yeah, yeah, you really do
to help regulate.
to help regulate. Yeah.
So I want to talk about there are so many different types of breath work. I mean, you've studied them. I didn't even, I didn't want to list them because I think my mouth would get all garbled on the different types there are. You've talked about breath work, box breathing a little bit, but there's functional breathing, there's transformative breathing, there's
Yeah.
I don't know, Budek,
The Buteyko method. Yeah.
Buteyko method, um, somatic
Yeah.
work. Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown of each of those?
Yeah.
What we need to know about them?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that uh, um, breath work is for anyone, but not all breath work is for everyone. If that kind of makes sense. That's uh,
That totally makes sense,
yeah.
by the
Okay.
way.
Good. Yeah. I
That's
don't know.
like when people say, "Oh, meditation doesn't work for me,"
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
"Exercise doesn't work
Yeah,
for me." You
yeah,
just haven't
it
found the
does.
right
Yeah,
one.
exactly. You just exactly that. You just haven't found the right one, or you haven't found the right window into making you feel something different. So pranayam would be, I would suggest, on one side of the spectrum. Then I kind of look at it as performance breath work or functional breathing or foundational mindfulness. This is the stuff that I say to my, 79-year-old mum or my 84-year-old dad or my 22-year-old pregnant cousin. Like these are all safe to do for anyone. Like the the breath that you would do every single day just to bring calm to the nervous system, to increase emotional well-being, to improve sleep, and all the things that we've been talking about.
I literally just recommended that to my mom.
Really.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, she's gonna go to do a breath work,
oh,
her first
brilliant.
one.
I'm
Mhm.
so happy. Yeah, and this is the beautiful thing about breath work. Now, on the other end of the spectrum would be this kind of holotropic breath work, transformational breath work, rebirth breathing, Wim Hof, people who've kind of done a little bit of
The Iceman
the
guy, yeah.
Iceman guy, yeah. All of this like much faster and more intense breath work. And within pranayama, there are also breath works like this, Brastiki, Brahmini, or Brastiki, I should say, Kalabati. These are kind of towards that end of the spectrum. They're not necessarily for everyone, but they can be extremely profound for some. Extremely profound. I would suggest, quite often a type A personality loves that kind of really fast one because, as I said, they feel like they're doing something. But for a lot of my clients, I push them down towards the other end of the spectrum of being in stillness, cultivating awareness of their body, sitting with their emotions, sitting with the frustration or the boredom that might come from breathing in gently through your nose and breathing out gently. It is as simple as that. Because they don't do it enough, and it's good information that all they want to do is, be yang, 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 or go, go, go. If we're thinking about it as a yin and yang, the yin would be over here, the yang would be over here. And so I think within this, it's important to contextualize where you might position breath work for different objectives.
I was thinking that as you were speaking that because as you beautifully described at the beginning around the nervous system and, like, do you need to calm down? Do you need more energy? Do you need more focus? And then there's a pick and mix of
Yeah,
breath breath work techniques that
yeah,
you can access.
exactly. And the breath works can be tweaked depending on the feedback from the person who's actually experiencing it.
Yeah, so
It's
don't give up.
Don't give up,
There's a lot of options. Talking about the transformative, my husband and I have been like, over the last few years, have been doing breath work and have gone to done some really interesting sessions, some with music, some with
Yes,
sound. He loves the transformative because he can get himself into I mean, you can get yourself into a psychedelic state a little bit.
for
I mean,
sure.
sometimes I think he uses it as an escape.
Mm,
Like, I'm gonna escape for a while and I'm gonna just,
yeah,
like, live on a planet for, like, an
yeah,
hour.
yeah, yeah,
I know I've been like, sometimes I broke it into tears, sometimes I broke it into laughter.
yeah.
I've had the tingling, and then there's been times where it just didn't work.
It's actually a beautiful moment whenever people get in their own way because they've had such an experience the first time, and then they're like, after 3 minutes, they're like, why aren't I back there? I need to go back to that state that I was in that I had the last time. And it's like I always think it's a beautiful moment because it's like where else in your life are you feeling like you're getting in your own way, where you're not letting flow, you're not letting just it happen and unfold with you.
That's interesting because to me, as you were talking, I'm like, it's kind of like when you're having an amazing dream and you
Mm,
come out of the dream and you're like, "No, no, no, I wanna go get me
yeah,
back into the
yeah,
dream.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanna get back in there and see how it finishes, or I wanna
Yes,
get back in
yes,
there because
yes,
'cause it's been so
yes.
much fun." That's what can happen. Let's talk technique
Mm,
because how we breathe, matters too, and there's a lot of talk around nose breathing, mouth
mm.
breathing. I think there were some studies I looked at that you can improve your cognitive function through nasal breathing, mouth
Yeah.
breathing. Why is mouth breathing bad for us?
Mhm.
Go.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, mouth breathing now is getting it's getting a bad rap. I would say that efficient breathing is uh breathing in the most efficient way to meet the current state of metabolic demand. So that's to say, like, if you're in
Speak
the
to me like I'm a 3-year-old here,
yeah,
Rob.
yeah, if you're like running the last leg of a marathon, very likely you're going to be in through the mouth and out through the mouth. And that's okay because the metabolic demand, the what is needed is very, very high. As in, like, I need to get oxygen in and carbon dioxide out very fast. We're not all not many people are running marathons every single day, and so this idea of, well, what way should I be breathing if I'm sitting on the sofa, if I'm having a conversation? And there's the metabolic demand is pretty low. Yes, we've been moving a little bit, but for the most part, we're sitting pretty still, chatting to each other. So ideally, you should be breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. And it's a really good thing to tune into if even as you're listening to this podcast, how am I breathing? Oh, some people will probably have just checked themselves and realize that their mouth is open and relax the jaw and, just let myself breathe in through the nose. And if you think about nasal breathing as why we're even doing it is to we breathe. The nose is for breathing. It's got hairs there to catch dirt. It's got um it comes in through the nose to create more resistance so that the air is humidified ever so slightly so that there's a better release of oxygen into the cells, tissues, organs, as we've said. If you're breathing in through the mouth, it kind of misses all of that. So there's no filter, there's no humidifier, goes straight into the body. So the body then has to work even harder. There's like more resource that goes just to doing the cleaning and doing the humidifying of the breath in itself. Breathing in through the nose stimulates the production of a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is like should win like molecule of the year. The advantages that this molecule creates in the body in terms of blood circulation, in terms of creating calm, in terms of sexual function is huge, like absolutely huge. And so just by breathing in through the nose and actually humming is another thing that stimulates the nitric oxide. So that's kind of a benefit of humming as well as we're breathing in through the nose. People might you or have heard of mouth taping.
Yes.
And a lot of people are mouth taping now
Yep.
through the night. And it's probably the best way to train your breath unconsciously. If you are 7 or 8 hours a night, like we're not talking, people have this view of mouth taping as like, Hannibal Lecter type style. Like
No,
this
my
is
husband started doing it because he's been snoring. And also
okay.
I was reading about nose breathing being beneficial. And I
Mm,
said, you're breathing with your mouth at night. And that's what you're saying, even about the nose is
mm,
the humidifier and
mhm,
what
mhm.
he's missing out on. So he's been, we're
Yeah.
calling it like gimp tape.
Yeah.
Um, we were like, oh, honey, you look really cute when
Yeah, I
we're going
know.
to
I know.
bed.
It's not the most sexy.
Me and
Just
my mouth
good
guard,
night.
him and his mouth tape,
Yeah, I
gorgeous,
know. I
just
know.
really sexy. But he wakes up, he's obviously breathing through his mouth because he wakes up like,
Try my yeah, yeah, exactly. That's OSA, obstructive sleep apnea, where it's dysfunctional breathing immediately.
gonna
Um,
write that down.
yeah, OSA. It's a huge. It's one of the biggest disorders of sleep, and sorry, breathing dysfunctionally is one of the biggest causes of OSA. And then sleep, like imagine sleep as the most potent performance enhancing drug. Sleep. And breathing, how you breathe during sleep has such a major impact on the quality of sleep that you can have. So, I mean, you can't, if you're breathing really well, you're going to be sleeping really well. You'll be amazed at the kind of disproportionate impact that mouth taping can have on a night's sleep and
Wow.
therefore on the rest of your day.
And is there a difference as well between inhale and exhale? Because I know even when you talk about doing the counting, like breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4, is there a difference in, like a lot of people go, like they'll
Yeah,
breathe in really fast versus take, like if the pace should go at the
yeah,
same, is that right?
yeah, very much so. So, I love even, the duality of the inhale and the exhale. The inhale is the first thing we do when we enter this world. The exhale is the last thing we do, and life is this part in between. And it really, I love this idea of the inhale is your stimulant, let's say, to the sympathetic tone. So this is your heart. This increases the heart rate. This speeds everything up. The exhale is the inhibitor of the sympathetic tone, so it relaxes everything. So it goes stands to reason now why you might hear people say take long deep breaths, or long deep exhales, because this whenever you extend your exhale, it brings calm to the system. So yeah, sorry.
No, no,
No,
no, that's
yeah.
perfect. That's perfect. I'm just heavily engaged,
Good,
and
I'm
every
glad.
time you're talking about it, I'm like breathing in. I think of
Yeah.
everybody listening, like when you said, "Notice where your tongue is," I was like, "Where's my tongue right now?"
I know, I know.
You have been studying this for such a long time. Is there like one, I don't know, like breath related insight, or is there one practice that changed your life? Or the impact that it's had on you, how you show up as a partner or as
Mm,
a father?
yeah. You know, nasal breathing, that you mentioned it, has been a game changer, or let's say the awareness of how I'm breathing in any given minute, has been such a game changer for me. And actually, just the constant practice, like the consistent practice. I had this aha moment, or this wonderful moment whenever. I don't know if many of your listeners will kind of practice yoga a lot, but a lot of yoga teachers would say connect to your breath, or like breathe in, hands up, and exhale, and hands down, and uttanasana, and all these different things. And initially they were just words whenever I was practicing, and then I became certified as in yoga, and I really dived into the pranayama and the Sanskrit, and realized that yoga was a breathing practice actually, and not even a physical practice, and started to really not even call it yoga. I started to call it breath led movement. Sometimes with my clients, I'll just make them do some breath led movement because I feel it connects mind and body. If you start to move with the inhale and the exhale, you become one, and it's a very beautiful practice. And I spent about 2 years doing exactly the same morning routine. It was like 4 minutes of movement, 4 minutes of breath, 4 minutes of meditation, 12-minute practice every single day for 2 years. And I would play the same music, and I would light my wee Palo Santo, and I would have everything. And I was traveling a lot during this period. So I would be in New York, London, Paris, Sydney, South America, sometimes in the space of a couple of months. And this practice became my kind of centralized internal home whenever my external home was never looking the same. And I would do the same breath, this ujjayi breath. It's known as ocean breath. Kind of feels like you're constricting your throat, and it's quite nice to listen to in your own head. And I would do it for these 4 minutes, and then I would move into just sitting in my breath work, and I would do exactly the same breath for 4 minutes. And then I would do the meditation. And it was a various different meditation visualization, but I'm still the same breath. And walking down the street in London sometime during the 2 years, and I don't know quite when, I noticed I was breathing that same breath. And I was like, oh, it's weird. Why am I feel really calm. I feel like I'm back on my wee space, and, just in my center calm. And then I realized that I'd actually had a very, an anxious thought had been the precursor to my breath. And cognitively, I hadn't even realized that I was stressed, but my body had. And my body had just kicked in and done the breath. And I thought, wow, like that's the power of it. And so innocuous, it's so small, but yet I've noticed it every time. Even you might notice it sometimes in the sauna, you get very hot. You take a big breath in through your nose, and you're like, and it's your body's way of trying to calm down. That's without any practice. Your body just instinctively knows and intuitively knows how to try to bring calm. I watch my wee man. He grabs his ears. This is stimulating his parasympathetic state.
Oh, you're
So, yeah.
kidding.
So
Oh,
sometimes whenever he wants to calm himself down, he's just playing with his ears, and he doesn't even
oh.
realize these are the ways that we have this physical intelligence that, if we allow it the space, if we allow it, if we harness it, if we give it the moment to also guide us, then we can work in tandem. It's kind of back to Rafa Nadal's quote, actually, your body is helping you, and to see your body as a safe place, and to see your physiology as a safe place that's trying to help you and bring you to kind of alignment.
Gary Brecka, that human biologist, for those who don't know, and he's a longevity expert. I read a quote from him that said, "I'd rather miss a flight than miss my breath work."
Love that.
And I think what you're talking about too was this consistency that
Yeah.
then allowed you when your body started just to feel your body then knew actually how to respond
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that naturally.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I'd read a lot about aha moments. And I was like, "Oh, I wonder what that is," you know? And the objective actually wasn't to have the aha moment, but whenever, I suppose that's why it's aha, because you're like, "Oh, aha." And it felt like, yeah, it felt so good, and it's something that I have gone back to so many times.
Now, Rob is going to lead us in a breathwork exercise to close out the show. But before he does, Rob, the final question we ask all of our guests, knowing what we know now about breathwork and the menopause transition, what would you tell our 35-year-old listener?
So 35, you're probably talking, if the average age of menopause is 50,
51,
51,
yeah.
yeah, the perimenopause is kind of 10, 12 years prior to, maybe 2 to 10 years, they say. So 35, you can start to build your practice. So like cultivate that awareness, do the protocols so that you're falling into that aha moment that I've just been talking about. Um, whenever hormone fluctuations start to happen.
What would you tell our 45-year-old listener?
I think that you potentially going through the hormonal fluctuations. So self compassion is a massive part of that. To allow yourself space that a lot of this is physiology, which impacts psychology. And there are protocols, breath, sound, the movement that you can start to use, harness, and activate in order to uh, counteract, let's say, a lot of the symptoms. So it can be, you can embrace actually the experience, as
And have your body work
work
with
for
you,
work with you,
not
as
against
Rafa
you.
said. Yeah.
And our 55-year-old listener.
I would suggest, even given that there's a like essentially almost a stop in hormonal production in the estrogen and progesterone, that breath becomes your best friend. The breath work protocols become your very best friend, because that can stimulate the hormone releases. So it can be really, really powerful.
That's a beautiful message to end on. Rob, I'm gonna add all of the information on how people can find you in the show notes. Um, will you kindly close out the episode with a breathwork
It
exercise?
would be a pleasure. It would be a
Thank you
pleasure.
so much for being part of
Thank
our
you, Lisa.
community. It's
Thank
been
you.
lovely to have you.
What a pleasure. Okay. Can I ask you to, if it's safe to do so, float the eyes closed? And if you're in a position where you can sit down or lie down, please do so. Straight in the spine is really the important thing here. For the first 3 or 4 breaths, I just want you to tune in to how you're breathing. How does it feel in the body? What's happening in the inhale? Is the belly moving up and out? Remembering that the lungs also have a huge volume at the back of the body. So don't just tune in to the front body, but tune into what's happening at the back body as you inhale. Allow that thought process to watch the breath moving sideways also. Going to ask you to breathe in for 4 seconds, and I'm going to count this, and out for 6 seconds. And if possible, try to breathe all through the nose. So it's quite a slow breath. When you're ready, just take a normal inhale and a normal exhale. Okay, come with me. Inhale for 2, 3, 4, and exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale for 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale for 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale gently and slowly down into the belly. And then exhale slowly and feel the heart slowing down. Good. And inhale gently. Then exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. And exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to do 3 more. Follow your breath. Inhale. And now exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one like this. Inhale. And exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Inhale for 3 seconds. Inhale. 2, 3. We're going to hold. And now exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And gently hold for a beat. Inhale for 2, 3. And hold for 2, 3. And now exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And hold for a beat. This is our last one. Inhale for 2, for 3, hold for 2, for 3, and then a slow, long exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Now inhale normally. Exhale. Inhale through the nose and notice which nostril you feel is more dominant on the intake of air. Exhale slowly. Inhale gently. And exhale slowly. You can allow the eyes to gently blink open. Move the neck, move the shoulders. And just come back into your space. Just check in with the body. How am I feeling? Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you so much.